Hi everyone, I'm Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another video concerning school, specifically pharmacy school. So if you don't know, I'm a pharmacy school student. I'm currently a second year pharmacy school student in my last year of didactics, which is also my second year of didactics in pharm school, but it's my last year of didactics, which is insane. So I'm going to be talking about today my experience in hospital rotations for hospital IPPEs, and we're just going to go ahead and get into it. If I look down, it's because I have notes that I wrote down so that I make sure that I don't miss anything, because I don't want to miss anything that I wrote down. So yeah, here we go. So first off, if you don't really know much about IPPEs, basically it's an experience of working unpaid in a pharmacy. So there's different types of rotations that you have to do in pharmacy school. Well, I'm assuming it's across the board, but at least what I did was 2 community rotations, hospital and ambulatory care. And so each of those are 80 hours, except AmCare is 30. So math equals X amount of hours of rotations. I don't feel like doing math. But how our school does it is that for hospital and ambulatory care, I can't speak, 2 out of the 3 trimesters in our P2 year is when we have those, and then we have 1 trimester off. So I did hospital rotations in my fall of my P2 year. So it was the very first semester of P2 year is when I did hospital, and I'm currently in summer. So yeah, that's pretty much basic background on what IPPEs is in general. So for hospital IPPEs, it was inpatient. So I did mine at Kaiser. It's a very similar experience though. Wherever you go across the board, you'll get very similar. What's another word for experience? I don't know. But my shift was from 8 to 6:30 p.m. or 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. on Sundays. So it was 10 hours, technically with a 30-minute lunch, but the way that we did it was because you get 2 15-minute breaks in that time. So that's 30, and then the 30 from lunch makes an hour. So we just took an hour for lunch. So that's kind of how that works. And then we get 10 hours of credit for that. So that was my schedule. Schedules are going to differ depending. But they were given to us basically. We didn't really get to like schedule with the preceptor, unlike community where we talked to our preceptor and we're like, hey, I can come in on these days, is this cool? For hospital, it's like, you're coming in these days, and we're like, okay. Obviously if there's conflicts and you can't make it for whatever reason, contact your preceptor, let them know. They're pretty understanding of the situations. But yeah, so talking about duties, my duties were pretty simple. It basically just consisted of cart fill in the morning. So I filled a bunch of prescriptions in the morning that were going to be distributed. I would also just fill throughout the day when prescriptions would be printed out. There was a little printer on the side, and you would just hear it go right, and then it would print out like a label, and then I would just take that, look for the medication, find it, and then slap it on. So yeah, I also did a couple of instances where I like pre-cut tablets. So I would, I think I did, was it mifeprostone or something like that? It was some teratogenic drug. I remember that. He was like, wear gloves, be very careful. And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, I cut the tablets into 4s, and I like pre-cut them and then put them into the bottle. So I did that. I also placed a bunch of stickers on medications, like for example, dosing conversions for heparin IV bags. I also checked a bunch of expiration dates for medications. Basically just would be going alphabetical order, looking at the backs on all the packages of the medications, making sure that they aren't expired first off, and then if they are going to expire soon, putting them at the front so that they get used, so that we don't waste medications. I would also just shadow text on medication deliveries on their rounds. So I got to see how the Pyxis machines work, and then as well as different areas of the hospital. There's actually one instance where I got to like garb up, which was super cool, because I never really did that in actual situations. I've only done it in labs for school, so that was pretty neat. As for lunch, we had lunch on our own accord, basically just halfway through the shift, because you can't work more than 5 hours straight, I think it is. So basically I would just notify the pharmacist or the tech, like, hey, is it okay if I take my lunch now? I'm gonna take my lunch. And they're like, cool. And I'm like, great. Just so they know, like, if they're looking for you, you're not gone. They know where you're at. It's pretty important to make sure that, because you don't want them to, you know, think you're slacking off or whatever. I also had a current P3 at my site who was doing IPPE rotations at that specific site, so it was nice to be able to just talk to him and be able to gain further insight on rotations and also pharmacy in general. He gave me a lot of advice, and it was also nice to just have someone to talk to, because sometimes we took lunch together and then we would just like talk and chat and be like, hey, how you doing, you know, how's school? Because, you know, a year ago he was basically in my shoes, and in a year, well, at that time, in a year, now it's a couple months, but I will be in his shoes. So it's just cool to be able to talk and have those kind of connections. And then also the staff, as I mentioned earlier, are super understanding if a situation comes up. For example, I got COVID at the very end of my rotations. I let them know when I got COVID. I was like, hey, I'm positive. I unfortunately cannot come into work for these days. And I will let you know, when I test negative a couple times. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. We basically just rescheduled times where I can make up the missed days so that I can complete my 80 hours on time. And what was pretty cool about that is that I got to come in during the first 2 Sundays of the next student's rotation. So it was a cool experience to be able to teach that student about basically like the inner workings of the pharmacy and how things are organized, where things are, and like what we do. That was pretty interesting, but that's pretty much it. The overall takeaways I guess I have, don't be too nervous, it's gonna be okay. It's fairly similar to community, but that's just because we as like intern students can't have a ton of responsibility since we are students and, you know, we're not licensed or anything. But yeah, it's very similar to community, except in the hospital for inpatient, you're gonna really only be filling like 1 or 2 pills in like a little bag versus a 90-day like pill bottle supply in the community setting. Just make sure to ask any technicians any questions you have, or the pharmacists if you have any questions as well. They're willing to help with anything. They want to help you learn. That's what they're there for, and use them as a resource because you're a student. You won't be a student for that much longer, so it's good to learn all you can now. And I'd also recommend, if you can, ask the technicians to go on rounds with them so you can experience what it's like. I thought that was really cool, and it was a nice way to kind of experience a change in scenery. And I also learned a lot about Pyxis machines and how the inpatient pharmacy works through that. So yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions about anything, I'll answer them in the comment section below to the best of my abilities. But yeah, I don't think I missed anything. I hope I didn't miss anything. If you thought this video was helpful and you liked it, give it a thumbs up. That helps me out. It lets me know. And I'll probably end up doing more like pharmacy stuff related in the future, especially since soon I'll be going on my 3rd year and I'll be doing my IPPE rotations, which is insane. But yeah, I post videos every single Sunday. I hope to see you again next week. Bye.